So you would have seen from my earlier video that my new little sundew dart has arrived this morning, but he's in a really, really teeny pot. So he does need to be repotted into something slightly larger. You don't want something too big like that, for example, because that is what we call overpotting. So you ideally want to have them go up in steps. So my plan is to put him in this little pot here. I thought I had some spares, but unfortunately I don't. So that means that Steve, my trumpet pitcher, is also going to be moved into his new pot today, this bigger one over here, and Dart will then be moved into Steve's. So when you're repotting, you always need to make sure you're using the correct soil. There is different soil for different types of carnivorous plants. As you can see here, I have my trumpet pitcher plant soil and my sundew plant soil handy. Both of these coming from cultivar carnivores who have created the perfect soil for each individual plant. And my process today is going to be with Steve first, going into his bigger home over here. And then once Steve has been repotted and I have cleaned the pot, then I'm going to move my new little dart. So Steve is in his dormant phase at the moment, which is why he's looking a little bit worse for wear. But you'll notice there are still one or two trumpets here that are in quite decent shape. Later in the month, I will need to trim down completely those dead ones. And repotting him is going to be a very gentle process. So what you really want to do is identify the difference in size. As you can see, this pot is somewhat larger, so I'm definitely going to want to put a little bit of soil in the bottom first, and sort of just line that in there, and then gently take Steve and put him in and fill in the gaps. But as you can see, this pot has really, really big holes, and the tropical or the trumpet pitcher plant soil is quite fine. So I've developed a little bit of a trick, and that is to dampen the soil first and then line the bottom. So I'm going to do that now, and then I will show you in the video how that looks. Right, so what I'm doing here is I'm just taking a couple of spoonfuls of this, yes, it is the correct soil, taking a couple of spoonfuls of this and just putting it into a mug, or any sort of holder is fine. It doesn't have to be a mug specifically, but as you can see, I'm planting in my kitchen and using my actual kitchen utensils, which is really great, and hence why I'm using a mug. So I've just done that, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my RO3 water. This is water from Oasis. Only use distilled water or rainwater or this RO3 water for your carnivorous plants. Never, ever, ever use tap water. Even when you are just replanting, the minerals will kill. So I'm just slowly adding a little bit of that water to this cup, because I want to create like a little bit of a mud, which would prevent all of it from falling through that hole, because that's the mistake I made last time. So I'm just going to get that to the right consistency. And you'll see now that is soggy, but not, or damp, I should say, but not soggy. You want something that's malleable, really, so that you can put it in the bottom of your new pot and just kind of press it down to give you a base to work with. Right, so now I've kind of got it in the bottom of the pot. I'm just going to gently, you don't want to compact it too much because you do want water to still be able to absorb through. So I'm just gently pressing that down and then having a look to see with Steve, if I place him in there, how deep are we? And you can see some of him is still going to stick out, but that's okay, because once I've got him out of this pot, he should settle a little bit. So now I'm going to gently turn him out. He is damp at the moment, so I don't know how well that's going to go down. I might see some soil collapse, but that's not a train smash. The main thing is to keep the root rhizomes intact and to try not to damage them in any way. So this is where it gets a bit tricky to be able to show you exactly what I'm doing with the right perspective. But my plan is really to gently tilt Steve, to sort of just coax him out ever so gently, squeezing the pot as I go. And if all goes according to plan, he should come out fairly easily, which he is not. Okay, so I don't want to tug or cause any trouble. So I'm going to use just a standard old teaspoon just to sort of gently go down and see if I can coax him out that way. This is a little trick that I learned with the root ball plugs. See, if I push the spoon in and he doesn't move, then I know I'm not touching his roots, which is why I've come in from this direction. And I'm just ever so gently lifting to see if I can coax out this plug of soil. I don't necessarily need to take all the soil out. Right, now we're seeing some movement, so we could have a bit of a mess happen here now. Gently, gently. And there is our Steve. Whoops. Okay, that shouldn't happen, but it's okay. He's still intact, so I'm just going to gently put him in place. There are some roots and things that lifted out ever so slightly there, but that is okay. I'm not worried about taking all of that excess soil from the old pot out because the soil isn't bad. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use this little trusty teaspoon as a trowel, and I'm just going to fill in the gaps. Right, so just going to push some of that other soil that came with the original plug down, not tight. Once again, you don't want to go really, really tight on this. You want to give him room to breathe. You want the water to be able to actually be absorbed into his soil. So the next thing I'm doing here is just taking literally a little teaspoon at a time of the dry soil and just gently throwing that into the spaces. With trumpet pitchers, it's a little bit easier because you don't have to be worried about damaging traps like with your Venus fly traps. And with your sundews, you don't want to be touching the sticky parts and causing damage there. So these guys are a little bit easier. I'm going to need 2 hands now to actually kind of gently move these pitchers out the way so I can get the soil into that gap there. So to continue where we left off, I was spooning little bits of soil into the gaps here. Now I can gently press down. You don't want to compact it too much. You can also, when the soil is loose, manipulate the plant ever so gently to get to the middle of the pot or whatever positioning it is that you're after. But I'm just gently compacting here. And you can see as I've pushed down in this corner here, it's going a lot lower. So I'm going to add a little bit more soil to top that up because I want to be level with that moss over there. Right. So in this process, I'm just going to keep the camera on so I can give you a couple of pointers with regards to the care of these different plants. And today, because we're working with a trumpet pitcher, I'm going to tell you a little bit about their care. So generally these guys do enjoy a sunny window. Mine are all on a north-facing windowsill. Well, like a kind of little greenhouse that I've got going there on the north side. Notice how now I've compacted for the last time. So these last few spoonfuls, I'm just laying on the top like that and just gently smoothing it out with the spoon just so that everything is nice and level. Okay. You don't have to be like super careful with them, but you also don't want to tug them about and cause unnecessary damage. So I don't have a baby, I've never had one, but I would imagine it's a similar process as when you're dealing with changing a baby's diaper or dressing them or something like that. You know, a little bit of force can help sometimes, but you just want to be as gentle as you can without damage. Okay, so Steve is now in his pot. As you can see, the soil is level with the beginning of his root system. So these new little rhizomes, I don't know if you can see, there's a new little one growing over there. That one is exposed, so that's going to give him a chance to actually grow out. But if you do see growth slowing down or stopping after repotting, don't panic. If you've done it at the right time of year using the correct soil, you'll be fine. Okay, so back to the care of these guys. So this is a tropical pitcher plant. They have what we call pitfall traps. So the bugs would go in there and then get stuck in this little area here where they'll be digested and eaten. So this is Steve, named after Steve from Stranger Things, of course. And Steve likes to be in a sunny spot with about 4 to 6 hours of direct sunlight every day. In winter, I reduce watering, but normally he would stand in a tray and that tray would have water in it and he would absorb that from the bottom. So that is what I'm going to do with him now. First, he's going to get his label with his name, and then he's going to go on the windowsill where he was before, but now in his nice new pot. Next up, I will be replanting my new little friend, Dart, named after the baby demagogue. And he's going to go into Steve's old pot. So this needs to be emptied, washed, dried thoroughly. So later this afternoon, that is the next mission. But for now, Steve can go to his new spot, and I'll send a photo of that later.